What's going on, guys? I'm Old Painless, and today's a big day. We got a finished combiner set from GenerationToy's, their gravity builder team here in all of its glory, and we've been waiting for this for quite some time. I mean, this has been a set that was announced probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. Maybe not quite that long, but it feels like ages by today's collecting standards, especially since Toy World came out, announced after these guys, and actually got their entire set released months prior. But the good news here is GenerationToy's finally released their long haul last month, and Crane just this past week or so. So the entire 6-member team is finished. It's here, and we're going to look at this in detail today. So starting off, we're going to look at the alt modes. I'll take a quick pause, get them into bot mode so we can see how the team stacks up. And then more importantly, we're going to get this sucker into the combined mode, do some comparisons. And just for reference, if you have any questions regarding transformations, I have covered each transformation for both forms, for combined and bot mode, in each individual video. So you can definitely check that out if you'd like to. Or feel free to drop a comment down below, and I'd be happy to try my best to help you out there. But let's get into it. So right off the bat, we can see here the entire team together. They look great. This is a great modernization of the Constructicon team. All the alt modes look cohesive. Granted, there may be some scaling issues here and there. Yeah, I'd probably imagine the crane, maybe the dump truck being a bit larger. You know, cockpits or cabins on vehicles, like this looks especially small versus like Mixmaster's front truck or Scraper's cabin there. So yeah, it doesn't match up perfectly. That's something that I'm totally fine with, aesthetically speaking. The cohesiveness here looks fantastic. The green plastic, the purples, the silver, the orangish, yellowish, black striping for the hazard tape. It all matches across the board, and it looks fantastic. These really are a great modernization with heavy G1 elements and references, and maybe some nods to IDW as well. And again, it's translated fantastically across the board with all these vehicles. So just taking a quick peek at some of the close-ups here, you can see the Bulldozer and Navi here. These guys look great. They have their generator packs there in the back as well. Look very, very nice. And pulling in Mixer Truck and Scraper. These guys, again, look fantastic together. Good stuff. And then lastly, we have the final 2 releases in the line. We have Dump Truck or Long Haul and Crane or Hook on the left. And just funny because they both form the torso. Different aspects of the torso, obviously. But just funny, the differences in shape. Obviously, much more of a brick on Dump Truck here versus more of a long, slender vehicle on Crane. And obviously it's due to transformation. Dump Truck maintains sort of this bulkish appearance for the combined form, you know, making up the lower half of the torso, versus Crane here, who sort of folds in half and creates the upper part, including the head. So just pretty neat. And then across the board, the 4 middle guys here all have rubber tires, which feel really nice. They all roll like a champ. The outer 2 figures here, which can make up the arms for the combiner, have wheels on their treads, similar tread designs, and they do have rubber wheels for the back generators. But all in all, I think that's enough of a look here for the entire team. I think lined up, that is an impressive look for a Constructicon team. That looks really menacing. I dig it. And here we have the whole team together, and man, these guys look so good. Like, I've been stressing this all along since I first started reviewing, you know, the second and third figure. The team looks so cohesive. The styling, the details, like the striping, the colors, the accents, it matches across the board so well. And I think this really creates such a nice looking team on the shelf. Yeah, look at these guys. They're big, brutish, updated versions of the G1 Constructicons. Again, mixture of G1 influences, I think some IDW influences as well, but yeah, these guys look awesome. And I think they look great on a shelf, you know, even in this mode versus actually putting them into the combined form. In terms of my favorites, I may be a weirdo. I think maybe it's the new plastic feel. I like Crane a hell of a lot. I think Crane looks really good. And I think his head sculpt is really sharp too. Crane and Long Haul or Dump Truck are probably two of my favorites. Big fan of Navi. Don't like Bone Crusher, that's for sure. And I'm a weirdo, but man, I love Mixmaster. Mixmaster is, for whatever reason, he gets a lot of hate. But I think that is a really nice sort of updated rendition of that character. I don't know. For a personal favorite, I'm kind of leaning towards Dump Truck or Crane, the two newest guys. Maybe Scraper or Scrapper, followed by Mixmaster, followed by Navi, and then bringing up the rear would be Bone Crusher. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think. But I think, again, this looks fantastic. And just to show it off, we have the Combiner chest wing plus the Combiner gun. And these actually can combine together to create sort of like an artillery cannon for these guys to use. This is pretty cool. I never really expected this to be an option for the Combiner kibble when it's not actually in the Devastator mode. Yeah, but as you can see, the side panels and details of the gun actually unpeg, and they are sort of attached to this double, or maybe a single, double hinge system, which slides along this joint. This slider is super, super tight, so be careful. I ended up loosening up some of the screws just to make that a little bit easier to manipulate. But they create this these front shielding portions of the cannon system. And then these little pieces here actually fold out, creating handles for the guys to actually hold on to. But just a really clever way to have this all set up. And you use the Combiner wing chest here as an actual base for this. So really friggin' sweet. But guys, that is the Generation Toys Constructicons in their bot modes. We're going to get these guys all combined up into the big boy Gravity Builder, aka Devastator. We're going to check him out, get some comparisons, and see how the final result ended up. Be right back. Alright guys, this is the moment I've been waiting for, and I'm sure you guys have as well. We have all 6 bots transformed into their Combiner limb parts and body. We got the chest piece, we have the gun off to the side. Let's go ahead and put this sucker together. Now these Combiner ports are pretty tricky. Even with the replacement piece that came for Scrapper, they are really, really tough. In the long run, it's going to benefit the figure, the combined form that is, because it's going to be a stronger ratchet and connection. But getting this actually moved as well as on Mixmaster is really, really tough. So use a tool if you have to. I have my little handy screwdriver. You basically want to get this ratchet or connection about 1 click back, and that will give you enough room to actually slide the knee connection in. And that knee connection too is a really stiff ratchet, so we're going to go ahead and pop that on. Super easy. Push it all the way back until you see that circle filled up right there, and you are good. Now ideally, you want to actually push for the most stable stance. You want to keep this knee, the actual long haul knee, completely vertical with the thigh. So just as is, but you want to get the combiner, or rather the lower knee joint, bent forward. So we'll give that a shot. It is pretty tough. And on Scrapper, it's a little scary to do because you have, this whole section here, which only kind of tabs in with those 4 pegs. It's not the best connection to be manhandling. But that's how you want it. So you want that joint vertical, you want the knee joint from long haul straight down, you have a nice straight leg connection right there, and you are good to go. Rinse and repeat. That's in all the way, and get that combiner joint pushed forward. There we go. That was a little bit easier. Alright, next up we're going to attach the upper torso. And basically, we have this peg and this series of 3 peg connections here, which are going to go into the bottom of long haul, or crane rather. And then these 2 pegs here go into the back. So the 2 pegs go into here and here. And then this connection here goes to there. And then this connection actually plugs into the elbow or the shoulder socket, and the 2 little prongs go into the other 2 holes right there. So it's pretty secure. And once those are pretty solidly pushed in, we'll go ahead and just secure the back connection right there. And that really is rock solid, so. And while we're here, we can kind of clean some things off. We can get these little extender pieces pushed out to the side that kind of fills out the torso. We can also flip down one or two of these forearm flaps from Crane that I mentioned. And those kind of act as a torso filler, just like so. And then obviously you have some options here with the wheels from Long Haul, but it's sort of recommended to have them at an angle. All right, so next up we'll grab Bone Crusher here, and if you notice, the combiner joint has a sort of a horizontal, it's a more rectangular shape. It's got a shorter end and a longer end, or longer side to it. So just put the long side straight back into that die-cast joint. And that just slides into place. Rinse and repeat. We'll grab the chest armor. These two holes right here and here are going to correspond to these pegs right here and here. Really push these on firm. It's not the best connection, to be perfectly honest. Looking at him from his feet all the way up to his head, there we have Generation Toys Gravity Builder finally completed. And man, what a beast of a combiner this figure is. Hugely impressed by how this looks. It has a really nice look overall. Again, it matches the sort of updated G1 IDW-ish aesthetic that Generation Toys has been going for their entire six-figure line. I mean, it really just all pays off right here. If you've watched Bobby Skullface, you've probably heard about him talk about that wow moment when you put together Warbitron's Bruticus for the first time, or Predaking. This figure has that feeling. I mean, it is super, super impressive. Look at that. Let's take a look at them. So again, a lot of that same detail we've been talking about all along. All the silver accents on the individual figures come through in spades. We have all the yellow and orangish or yellowish striping all throughout the figure. Super clean, and man, the proportions are so good too. I know a lot of people are fans of Toy World's Devastator, their version. I think it looks excellent as well, but this has a properly proportioned torso. You know, properly bulked out, you know, actual body. Nothing like too skinny. You can actually even angle these and compress them inwards so they're actually flat against this body part, or even lower them down, and it still looks full and powerful. Doesn't have that anorexic look. And then zooming in on the head sculpt here, I think this is a fantastic looking Devastator. It is stylized. It's not super G1 by any means, but again, this is an updated stylized look, and it definitely fits the bill. Great paint on the visor, nice sculpted detail on the face, nice silver finish as well, and no black nose. It's actually a full silver face, unlike those prototypes that we saw. He just has a presence to him. He looks really good. Let's check out some of the articulation. So we do have a head on a, looks like a swiveled hinge, which works pretty well. It doesn't really lock into place on the top torso there, so it kind of flops a little bit. But you can definitely just push it straight back down, and you know, it stays very stable for the most part. Not a fan of the kibble back here for the cabin that holds the combiner head in Crane's mode, but it does lay down there pretty flat. I apologize, I obviously don't have an angle to really show that at the moment. But yeah, the head gives you the full rotation that you need. Works well enough. Arms can rotate fine. Nice solid ratchets. Can obviously hold a pose, no problem right there. The articulation is a little bit nicer on Navi or Scavenger because you get an additional outward lower arm rotation here, or hinge, which I really like. This one's actually, that's as far as it goes on the lower section, so I do wish that Bone Crusher here also supported that extra slight movement to it. You do get a nice elbow bend, which gets you a little over 90 degrees straight forward until it butts up against the tread. If you move it to the side, it gets you even further than 90 degrees. Same over here. The hands are pretty nice. They get a nice wrist rotation. They do have a multi-joint finger, so you have ball joint at the base knuckle right there, as well as 2 additional hinges on each finger. Then you also do have a ball socket joint for the thumb, as well as 1 hinge for that as well. Very emotive, very nice. And you can take the combiner weapon here that came with Crane. It has a double peg system on the base of the handle that will plug into the palm of the hand right there. These are a little uncooperative, so you gotta squeeze those pretty tight. But once you get him in there, he holds that pretty damn well. But as you can see, once you get the gun in there, he holds that like a champ. And his arm can support the weight no problem. So good ratchets all along that upper body. We do get a waist swivel, so plenty of motion there. And before we check out the hips and the legs, just to show this off, a very clean looking back, including weapon storage all around. And then the crane section actually can bend at that joint I mentioned in the crane review. You can actually fold that flat down. Just like that. So in case you have a space constraint on your shelf, you can make that a much smaller profile for the combiner. Alright, now coming down to the hips, these are going to be a little bit tricky. What I'm actually going to do is take the arms off just to make it a little bit easier to handle the figure, to show off that articulation. But we do have a moving hip skirt here. The hip joint itself is actually not ratcheted to the back and forward movement, although it is outward ratcheted. And the outward ratchet, in conjunction with the rubber tires on Mixmaster and Scraper, they keep this guy really, really solid and stable. So it's not really... It has a slight lean right now. But I mean, this guy is not going anywhere. It's pretty resilient. It's not going to fall backwards. But what I want to show off here is the hip joints. Oh, of course, the hip skirts are on a ball joint, so they can pop right back on, but not quite 90 degrees forward. Again, super, super tight joints. Oof. I mean, if you give it a slight angle, you can get it almost all the way backwards as well. And the knees are going to be interesting. So they do bend on long haul. So you can get it back about 45 degrees if you just use long haul joint. You can also manipulate this joint further. I'm actually going to use Mixmaster to demonstrate that because he's a little bit easier to maintain. But just about 90 degrees on the knee bend right there. It's not something I really want to utilize too often because I feel like these joints are super, super tight. And I don't like manhandling them too much, so those are tough joints to handle, especially because I'm kind of leaning over a camera. I don't have a lot of leverage here for myself to manipulate this. But, I mean, really strong ratchets. But yeah, I mean, shit. So yeah, super strong ratchets. Really well done. I literally have no fear of this leg assembly actually splaying outwards at all in this figure. But all in all, the articulation-wise, I mean, it really gives you pretty much what you're looking for. I mean, nearly completely forward and backward leg movement, arm movement, which works quite well. You do have additional joints within each individual arm, so you can get these actually up pretty nicely. You can see that there's actually an additional interior shoulder joint, which is part of Bone Crusher and Scavenger. And in the actual shoulder joint, the die-cast joint on Crane, that can actually angle upwards as well. So again, you have a lot of movement and a lot of articulation for a big combiner figure like this. And just to show off some comparisons, here is Gravity Builder next to Warbotron's Bruticus. And if you were interested in Bruticus or purchased this guy, chances are Gravity Builder probably caught your eye because they are rumored to be the same company, just a new name, and obviously very similar design aesthetics and tastes. Just a much better figure though. I think Gravity Builder is certainly a step up over their Bruticus in terms of quality. And here he is next to Warbotron's Computron. Again, similar company. I would say that these two combiners have a very similar kind of feel in terms of plastic, tolerances, materials. These are very, very similar in that regard, although I do think Computron felt like a bit of a rush job, more likely than not because they were starting their new company off making this guy. And then lastly, I had a request to show off Gravity Builder here next to MMC's Feral Rex or Predaking. And Predaking is on the tallest height setting right there. You can see his little yellow thighs kind of peeking through. But they look pretty good together. Gravity Builder definitely has a slight height advantage, but it's not that far off where it doesn't look like it would be appropriate on a shelf together. And just for some height references here, I'd say Gravity Builder's about 14.5 inches tall, roughly, to the top of his head. Whereas Predaking at the top of his head is probably just under 14 inches. So maybe 3/4 of an inch different in height, in case you were looking for a comparison right there. But again, I think these both look awesome together. And just to show it off, I got Desperatron in the same day that I got Gravity Builder's crane in. And, you know, whether that works on your shelf is going to be up to you. You can make an argument that he could certainly work on an MP shelf. Megatron comes up right below his waist right there, which by Masterpiece standards probably is a touch just too short. I think most people would think an MP Devastator, you know, the MP10 or Megatron, or Optimus Prime or Megatron would probably come up to their knee versus the waist. So he's just a touch small. I think Toy World's Devastator probably is better scaled in that regard. But I think Generation Toy has done something pretty awesome here, where this definitely can look appropriate, especially if you maybe put him like on a riser behind your Decepticons. You can give him a really imposing look behind your figures right there. Now I did want to show off the replacement head. This actually is the head sculpt that's not installed, but I prefer it more myself. But just get a little small tool like a screwdriver. You can pop that right off, connected just via 2 pegs. This will just pop right back on. So there we have that screaming face, the pre-installed yelling Devastator head, which looks pretty cool. Alright guys, so final thoughts on Generation Toy's Gravity Builder. This has been a long time coming. It's a combiner that I've been very excited for, and it's been up and down with the individual bots. You know, I do think Scraper started off really strong. I know Mixmaster was a little disappointing for some people. Aesthetically though, he really worked well for me. I'm a big fan of those, the shoulder armor and whatnot. And then we went on to Navi, or Scavenger. Again, I think that was pretty much a winner in my book for that figure as well. And then we had the disappointment of Bone Crusher with all that really poorly implemented shoulder kibble and whatnot. Long Haul, I think, has been a success, and I think Crane, well, the QC might be a little suspect at the moment. Hopefully that will be addressed by Generation Toys by doing that recall, if that's actually happening. And the version will be cleaned up once it finally hits most major retailers. I think Crane, though, honestly, is one of the better looking bot in vehicle modes of the whole set. So they really finished pretty strong for me with the last 2 figures. And I think for the most part, the individual bots, and especially the vehicles, were pretty successful. You know, they really embellished that updated G1 and sort of IDW aesthetic, and I think they really knocked it out of the park in that regard. So the question now becomes, is the combined mode worth it? And I had to say, with absolutely yes, a resounding yes, the combined mode is not only the icing on the cake, but man, this is probably one of my favorite combiner pieces I have in my collection. And I've been a big fan of Warbotron products. I like their Bruticus quite a bit. I loved Predaking from MMC. But this is definitely right up there, if not surpassing those other combiner figures. The plastic is fantastic. The paint across the board is well done, well applied. Plastic feels dense. Joints are super tight. I mean, they might arguably be too tight. I have no concerns about, you know, hips splaying apart or ratchets failing like TFC's earlier releases, like Uranos and whatnot. He feels rock solid. It's a great finished, polished combiner figure. And like I said, if you've been waiting to finish this setup, you're going to be very happy, I think, once you get this on your shelf and put together finally. So if you're looking for a Devastator that's going to fit with Chug perfectly. This absolutely will fit the bill. If you're looking for a Devastator that might work with Masterpiece, that's up to you to decide whether that would work or not. I think it's going to work for me until I see enough combiners coming out in the larger, 18 to, 20-inch scale, like up in this area, like Toy World, to really sway me from, swapping out to a larger scale. But this looks great. I think it can work for multiple types of collections, or if you just like combiners in general, I think this is going to be a pretty killer combiner to have on your shelf. So guys, thank you so much for joining me on this little journey with Generation Toys Gravity Builder. It's been a pretty fun ride, going from the first release up to the last here. Thanks for sticking with me, and hopefully I'll have some more reviews coming up soon. I got Desperatron. I still have the KFC Junkions to get to, amongst some other things. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Have a great night.